Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 207 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and we are having another ACP Round Table. No, we have not changed formatting issues, but maybe some of you might have looked at the news and seen that you might figure this out. But, of course, as always, the most lovely hostess of all, Erin Paulette, joins me. How you doing, Erin?
Yeah, I understand that there was an important announcement made.
Never heard it.
Fine. Don't play along, Weird. Whatever. Yes, hello, everyone. And we're doing 2 roundtables in a row. I wanted to bring in a lawyer, but no, Weird's all, no, we gotta do another roundtable. So here we are.
Erin's mad at me.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
See, it makes it worse.
That's why I did it.
That always hurts more. David, did you get that as a child? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
You do know I'm Jewish.
That's exactly why I asked.
So how is this even a question?
And that is the voice of David.
Yes, and I do know what the big announcement was. Remington announced the 10mm Golden Saber.
Ooh, extra fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can feed it through a early 1911 A1. That's what I've always heard is Golden Sabers are good for like older guns that were never designed to feed hollow points.
It's just a different design. But no, that's for feeding through your Smith & Wesson Model 610.
Yes. And of course, probably Oddball's parents were never disappointed whatsoever because they were just happy that he hadn't eaten all the paint off the walls.
I mean, there was that.
Were you a large baby, Oddball?
Yes, I was. In fact, I thought my mom was kidding until I actually saw the birth certificate. And you know how there's that little square on the birth certificate for the baby's footprints?
I can see where this is going, but pray continue.
They were able to fit my footprint in that square, but they had to kind of go at it diagonally, and it almost didn't fit.
Especially given Oddball's extra toes.
Do they get the webbing?
You know, I've never seen Oddball barefoot. I wonder if you do have polydactyly. Oddball, do you have a dew claw?
No.
I mean, it's a karambit, but yes.
I mean, I can pick up Coke cans with my feet, but no.
And bowling balls.
So, relevant to very little, but highly amusing nonetheless. In the game that I run on Saturdays, the players had detained an NPC after said NPC had murdered someone. And, after they had taken him down and broken his arm, one of the characters, went to disarm him. And I mentioned, okay, well, he's got this, he's got that. And he's got an inordinate amount of knives. And so one of my players, who is known to you, but I'm not going to say his name because this is going to go out, says, well, I mean, for all of us, that doesn't really mean anything. What do you mean? And then they specifically said, on a scale of 0 to Oddball, how many knives does he have?
Is the person you're not naming a friend of the show with a very common name?
Probably.
Okay.
But yes, from 0. That's like the old joke on the being a gun nut talking to a normie about your gun collection, and then someone says, "How many guns do you have? How many guns do you have?" The proper answer is, "On me right now."
Uh-huh.
Yep. Right up there with the whole going around. Oh, no. For most people, a normal amount of guns is 4 or 5. Well, that sounds like a lot of guns. No. A lot of guns would be a few dozen. Few dozen? That sounds crazy. No, I already said the crazy people only have one.
Of course, also the answer of which I have absolutely done and use it very, very well is, how many guns do you have? And I'm like, I don't know.
There's also not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could give you a range, but I can't guarantee a number that would be accurate. And at which point, if they're surprised on how do you not know how many guns you have, you can ask them, how many pairs of socks do you have?
Right? And also, if I'm at home, I'm like, well, I can check the database.
Yes.
Because, of course, I have a database. And I think Weer'd missed a little detail of my comment earlier regarding 10 millimeter.
What about that?
I mentioned that the 10 millimeter Golden Saber would be used to feed the Smith & Wesson Model 610, and
Yes.
you said yeah, and you did not react.
What? I was actually thinking oh shoot, what is the Dakota ring for? I was doing the Dakota ring for the FBI semi-automatic, which is I think 1043. Is it, David?
What do you mean by Dakota ring? What?
Because Smith & Wesson has a lot of model numbers over the years, and they don't always...
Oh.
It's like the Glock decoder ring?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Glock 45 is in 9 millimeter.
Yes, exactly. And the Glock 40 is in 10 millimeter.
Yeah.
And the Glock 22 is in 40.
Something like that.
And I don't remember what the 45 Glock is. It's 20-something.
21... 20, 30, 36.
The Glock 2030. I'd never heard of that one before.
So the full size second gen Smith & Wesson 10 millimeter is the 1006.
Yes, but I was thinking the one that has the frame mounted decocker.
1076.
1076. Thank you, David.
You said cock.
Yes. But the Model 610 is what?
Is the revolver, of which case I would say no.
It's okay, you can be wrong.
It is an end frame Smith & Wesson. You could easily get that in 41 Magnum or 44 Magnum.
45 Colt, 45 ACP.
Well, 45 Colt is okay. Yes.
I have an end frame in 45 ACP.
Yes, I know.
What year was it from?
1917.
Well, that's the model number. Technically, mine was made in February of 1918, but we'll let that pass.
I'm sorry, David. I'm not looking at your database.
I mean, I'm not looking at my computer database. I'm looking at my gray matter database, which is frightening.
He's looking at the binder that he keeps.
Is it full of women?
Yes. Well, he
I know, it's an incredibly dated joke.
Yes, but I got it. And I was like, all my guns are girls.
Which has never made sense to me, because guns are just exceptionally phallic and ejaculative.
Yes, but men handle them and play with them,
But men also handle and play with their penises, so...
Yes, but they don't generally show them to other men or let other men try them.
Are you sure?
Yeah, are you sure?
Not in my experience, anyway. I've never had a guy at the range offer to show me his penis.
But how do you sword fight?
With swords?
The binder's
I'm going to change the subject. What's everyone drinking tonight?
Well, so the binder's full of women. I will have to say the binder's full of women is a Willard Mitt Romney joke, and I will absolutely say that I will absolutely say that would be a great time to segue, but unfortunately, I think before we segue into the news, Oddball has a story.
Yeah. So I won an auction for a few guns, and yes, they were Trash Panda guns.
How many Altors did you buy?
No Altors.
Raven Arms, Jimenez Arms, Tarai?
No, it was
High Points?
An old Ivor Johnson 38 Smith & Wesson top rake, an H&R 22 top rake, and a stainless Ruger P89.
Those don't sound like Trash Panda guns to me.
Pretty much, unless they're Smith & Wesson, all the older break tops are considered Trash Panda.
The two break tops, I paid about the same for those two break tops combined as I did for the knife that's currently in my pocket.
Well, that doesn't really mean anything because you're willing to pay ridiculous amounts of money for knives.
She has a valid point.
That's fair.
Which knife do you have in your pocket right now, Oddball?
Which pocket?
Well, there's that. But I was thinking specifically the Spyderco Spidey Chef.
Okay.
Which is a pricey knife. It's and of course, dear Lord, how one of my knife friends sent me a link to a knife earlier today that was like $800. Yeah, that's nice. Okay.
Wow, we found Oddball's upper limit.
But anyways, so they, according to the USPS tracking, they were supposed to arrive at my FFL this morning. And indeed, according to the tracking, the postman tried to deliver it.
To their credit.
But declared that the business was closed and there was no forwarding address. So they were going to return to sender. Okay, so I do some digging and find out that, the auction house, for whatever reason, possibly my FFL had screwed up and sent the wrong address, and they tried to send it to the location the FFL was at, like, 4 years ago.
Oops.
So
it's a time that's very much not now.
Right. So talking to lady over the phone at USPS, they told me, okay, if you can get down to the physical post office, there's a chance you can have it diverted. So I hop in the car and drive down to the post office and talk to the nice lady at the counter and tell her what happened. And she said, okay, yeah, I think I remember actually handling that package myself. It's already in the big box that's supposed to go on the truck to go back to the distribution center and back to whence it came. But I don't think the truck has shown up yet. So I'll run back there, take a look, see if I can find it. It'll take a couple minutes. Okay, cool. Go stand by the blue door. Okay. So I do that, and she comes back to the door and said, yes, we found it. Here's the box. Here you go.
Now, you also should include in this story the conversation with the folks at the auction house about this event.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I called up the folks at the auction house, which, Hesney Auction House, great people, up in New York. And
bid with confidence.
Yeah, and Susie up there said, oh, shoot, yeah, I see that. I don't know why we put that address on there. I can even see on the FFL license, it says correct address. So if it shows up here, we'll happily send it back out free of charge. And if you can get it diverted, if the post office charges you anything, let me know and I'll credit you whatever they charge you. Okay, cool. So I'm standing there, and the nice lady at the post office is confused by the fact that this gentleman won't take his package.
It has his name on it.
And I'm saying, ma'am, there's firearms in that box. I cannot legally take this package. It has to go to a gun store. But it's yours, right? Yes. And as much as I would love to just take it and go home,
you would have a visit from the nice people who would bring a dog and shoot it for you.
Heck, I would even, because I have to drive past the gun shop to get back to my house, I would even happily take the box and deliver it myself to the gun shop and have the paperwork done and the background checks done.
Which that might be another federal felony.
But I can't. Right, because if I take possession of that, now the way the law is actually worded, it's unclear because the law actually talks about it's illegal to knowingly send or cause a firearm to be delivered to someone that's not an FFL, unless if it's doing repair work and the manufacturer is sending it directly back to the owner. But knowing the ATF, I don't want to fool around with that's a that's a possible felony and
Possible?
Well, if the ATF so discovers it and decides to
it is a felony. It's whether they decide to follow up on it.
Right. I mean, it's the whole thing of I might be able to talk semantics out of it, but I don't want to play that game with the federal government.
No,
especially,
they're in a kind of touchy mood right now.
Yeah, it's especially when it's the difference between a day of waiting a day to get some cheap guns that are just going in my collection.
a day on the one hand, 5 to 10 years on the other.
Up to 2 years, but still, and losing the right to own any firearm ever again.
Now the funny thing is, I heard a similar story. Are you done with this, or
not quite?
Okay.
So I actually had to repeat that to her multiple times, and she still didn't get it, and finally went, oh, okay, so... And I think she finally gave up, not because she understood, but just because, okay, here's this guy that is insisting on doing it this way. So they should hopefully be delivered tomorrow. And I called Susie back up and told her and mentioned the whole, if nothing else, I don't want to possibly get Hesney in trouble or my local FFL in trouble over this, because that is one of the things that if the ATF finds out and decides to be jerks about it, all three parties could be in deep trouble. And she laughed and said, yes, thank you, and cracked about, it's like, oh, when she told you, here's the package, I'm sure you thought, well, I'd love to take it, but... So yeah, hopefully I'll have my guns tomorrow. But yeah, I had a federal employee encouraging me to commit a felony.
A federal felony.
A federal felony.
But at least in her defense, it was done out of ignorance rather than entrapment.
Yes, I fully believe that because she also tried to say, well, that makes no sense, because what if we have to send it back to sender, blah, blah.
Lady, I agree with you, but the federal government has made this law.
I would love to take this package, but me taking possession, that would be a federal crime. Let's not do that.
Why I always say be very, very careful if you are vacationing or traveling with non-gunnies while you are carrying, because they will do the darndest things, because stuff that you just don't even take for granted anymore, you will just suddenly be like, oh, let's swing by that federal building. Let's go play on the playground at the elementary school. We'll just sit on the merry-go-round and talk. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing of I live in a pretty rural suburb, which I mean, it's a lot less now than it was 10 years ago, but it's there's still a lot of and yeah, not as rural as David's place, but it is a bit of, given the community, I was actually kind of surprised that I had to inform her that this is the way this works.
So, done?
Yes, I'm done.
So,
God,
I just want to make sure I wasn't cutting you off.
Could you sound any more impatient? Good Lord.
Are you done, Oddball? Are you done? Come on, tell me you're done.
One more thing. No, I'm done.
Oh, okay, Columbo. Kids asking folks. But right around the time this was happening to Oddball, in one of my firearm groups, a guy was telling a similar story, except they delivered the package to his home, left it on his doorstep for several days because he was away from home, but said he signed for it. So he gets home, there's a box, he picks it up, he looks at the label, and it's addressed to the gun shop, but it also has his address on it, his name and address on it.
Okay.
I'm not sure why that happened, but there it was. So he realizes what is in said box, which was not handguns. So a box containing long guns was left unattended on his front porch for several days. So he brings it to the gun shop. Oh crap, how much trouble are we in? And the gun shop is like, nah, fam, we got you. And they, run them through their books and do the 4473 and all that stuff. And then the gun shop manager or owner, I don't remember from the story which one it was, says, you may want to hang out for this. Gets on the phone and calls the postmaster. And has a rather polite conversation because, the postmaster's not the one who did this.
Right.
But, and the postmaster now knows the address, the date the package was left, what was in the package, where the package was actually addressed to, and so on and so forth. Actually, thinking back, I don't know if the guy's address was actually on the box or just his name. Gun shop, whatever, care of, name, gun shop address. And the postal delivery person brought it to the name house. I don't remember that. They didn't post pictures of the label with his address, obviously. But it was just the way he's telling the story, he was extremely panicked that he was going to get jacked up because the post office left a package at his door that shouldn't have gone there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is tragic that someone would feel that way, but also shows the ridiculousness of whatever package service it was. I don't.
All because of dumb laws.
Yes.
And speaking of dumb laws.
Yes.
That's what we call a segue.
I thought that was a little thing with two wheels.
But that Segway is a little scooter thing you ride, Oddball. This is a Segu.
Oh, okay.
Segway. That's Segway. This one has none of those letters.
Segu is French for pivot.
Is Segway like a henway?
What's a henway, David?
About 6 pounds.
Delicious. But
thank you for playing along.
Yes, you're welcome, David. So yeah, stupid law, but let's talk about it. The President Biden has signed the quote-unquote Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. God, they have to come up with the dumbest rules.
Yep.
And
not one of the signatories could explain how these will make the community safer.
No.
Nope.
Nor do they care.
No. It's all about votes.
And so, yes, this one has, I don't know how many, do we know off the top of our head how many Republicans signed on to this one?
I believe it was 15.
Yeah. Sounds right.
And
yes, from the article, it passed the Senate with 15 Republican votes and the House of Representatives with 14.
Mm-hmm. So I will say right now, this is a dumb law, but also at the same time, I see a lot of frantic people talking about, horrible, horrible gun control. And I don't know, maybe the people in the dais disagree with me, but I see this as really just nothing but a bill of dumb.
I mean, that's true for almost any gun law.
There's actually parts of it that I like.
Yes, I agree as well.
We more or less covered this in a previous segment, a previous episode. I mean, back then it hadn't passed, but you and I dissected it pretty thoroughly, and I don't know that anything has really changed, has it?
No, there's just a couple of finer points that I want to put on to make sure that's going through. Again,
what points are those, Weer'd?
Oddball mentioned that there's some release of funds for school security and for mental health intervention,
and I think we're all happy with that.
Yes,
as long as it's applied correctly. Yes.
Yep. There is an update to the definition of an FFL, which
could be a benefit.
It doesn't really solve any problems because it's still annoyingly vague. But it is only slightly less annoyingly vague, so I'll give that an A for effort. It's just it's simply
in English, effort begins with an E.
yeah, that's true. But I can't spell, so
That's why I was trying to educate you.
And it also updated or clarified the definition of straw purchaser.
Yes. And actually, did you actually? That's actually one section I have not read. What are your feelings on that one, Oddball?
I like it because it specifies that the definition of a straw purchase is someone buying a firearm and going through the background check with the intent of giving or selling the gun to someone that they have reason to believe is a prohibited person or is going to go off and do bad things with it.
That is good, actually.
Yeah. So, like, if, say, David and I spot a gun auction of a lot of guns.
And you can take that terminology either way. We're both good with that.
Right. Mm-hmm. We can agree to go in on purchase of this lot, and one of us, and just because of the logistics of it, one of us would have to pay for it and receive it and do the background check on all of them. And then we could turn around and divvy up the guns. And since David and I know each other rather well and know that, one, we are not prohibited persons, or distinctly have reason to believe that we are very much not prohibited people.
You guys both have carry permits in good standing.
Right.
Yes.
And we're both fairly certain that the other is not going to run off and
commit a mass murder or some other violent felony.
Right. Then that's free and clear, and that is perfectly legal.
Yeah. Well, that's that is good, because that's always been this. That clarifies, because there's spirit of the law and letter of the law, and now the letter and the law and the spirit of the law seem to be much more, which is no, all that stuff about are you the actual buyer of this gun is not because no, only you can buy this gun, but making sure that you are not transferring it to someone that would be otherwise prohibited. You're not trying to cheat the law.
Right. So the police officer that bought the Glock on the police discount Glock. Yeah, the blue something. Anyway,
blue label,
and then sold it to his father under this new interpretation would not have gotten jacked up.
Right. Now, the cop that...
Especially since, didn't they transfer that at an FFL from the son to the father?
It was in Pennsylvania. You're not allowed to do private sales of handguns there.
Yeah. Now, the cops, plural, that have been gotten caught in California buying stuff off of the list that only cops can buy and turning around and selling them as a side gig, that's a different matter.
Right. I mean, if he did like 2 or 3 a year, he could probably say, well, I'm trying different guns.
Mm-hmm.
But he went way beyond that.
Right.
So that is overall a good thing. Yeah. And then I think, is there anything else that's particularly beneficial, or is it time to get under the yucky stuff?
Well, everything else you and Erin covered in a previous episode, so I don't.
But only just to clarify they have now expanded the definition of domestic abuser to also someone who is in a quote unquote dating relationship, and which is Stephen Gutowski's talked about it multiple times on his various podcasts about how it really doesn't answer any questions. It's clear on what it's not, but not what it is. But that exists, and that is a little bit troubling, especially given that my personal opinion, the Lautenberg Amendment is just complete garbage. It shouldn't matter. The act that you're doing is against the domestic partner. The key factor is, are you doing something dangerous or bad enough that we are going to take your rights away? It doesn't matter who you do it to, in my opinion.
I actually had part of it. I'd like to think it got the thoughts going, but it was about red flag laws, Lautenberg Act type of things. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if they're that much of a danger, why don't they just arrest them? They're like, well, they haven't done anything wrong yet. They actually said that. And I'm like, well, if they haven't done anything wrong yet, why are they being punished? Well, because they think they might do something wrong. Then if they think that's strong enough, they should be arrested. Well, they haven't done anything yet. And this went around 2 or 3 times before I think a little bit of light got through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll last, but...
Yeah.
Even a giant oak tree starts with a single acorn.
Yeah, some people are nuts.
Well played. Well played.
Well,
but yeah, but this, if you are granted, if you commit the act of domestic violence against a mother of your children, or
baby mama,
or someone you are married to, or the father of your children, or someone that you are married to, let's not be gendered here, and that is a prohibition for life. This act against a dating partner, 5 years, and it's out. The other one that has a that has a timeout on it is the people who are 18 to 21 buying firearms, of which case their record's going to be scrutinized, and it may incur a waiting period for it. Again, that's only the moment you turn 21.
Boom.
Everything that you've done as a juvenile essentially vanishes from any NICS requirement according to this law, and it specifically states that these people can go and contact the ATF for a PIN number. I said PIN number. Sorry, Oddball.
Dude.
Yeah, but for an ATF PIN that would allow them to put that on their 4473 and clarify, yes, this person's juvenile, both this person's adult record and their juvenile record are perfectly clean, and they may purchase firearms. And so really, if you are a young gun collector and you want to start buying a bunch of guns before you turn 21, just simply contact the ATF about a PIN, and you'll be all set. You will be able to buy firearms as if this law never existed. It's a little extra step. Mm-hmm. And of course, also, it's an added bonus is this may get the ACLU to start suing this law, which would be very, very amusing and interesting.
And one thing good politically with this is the anti-gunners burned a lot of political capital.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to get it through the Senate committee after hours. It was introduced in a committee session and passed sometime between 5:30 p.m. and 7:30.
So sort of like the Safe Act.
Safe Act.
It actually got through the Senate. It was amended to another bill that was the bill it was amended to was about renaming a federal building.
It was a placeholder
in Florida, and that all got done after business hours a couple days later, and then it got pushed through the House the next day while everybody else was distracted by the stuff going on in the Supreme Court. So they had to do all that, and like I said, and burn a lot of political capital to get this a bill that, frankly, to me, the most annoying thing about this bill is that the anti-gunners call it a win.
And I'm not annoyed that the anti-gunners call it a win. I'm annoyed that their followers believe them.
Well, mm-hmm. Yeah, that they're touting this as as the biggest gun legislation passed, or most comprehensive gun legislation passed in
30 years.
30 years, which, yes, technically they're correct, because the only other thing I can think of that's been passed in 30 years was the Fix the NICS bill, which...
This isn't the flex you're making it out to be.
Yeah, the only other gun control related things I can think of are, of course, the bump stock ban, which wasn't legislation.
Right.
Fix the NICS, which also wasn't the flex they thought it was.
Right.
And guns in national parks, which was a win for us.
Right.
I believe that was no, that wasn't an executive order. That was
tied on to the credit card legislation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was also presented by pro-gun senators or representatives. So it was never masquerading as an anti-gun bill like this one was.
Right.
It wasn't a separate bill. It was an add-on tacked onto a must-pass bill with credit cards, which I thought brilliant. Keep it up.
Yeah, and the other side to this though too is the Republicans that signed on to this will get some cover as being. Unfortunately, they will get some blowback because there's so many people calling them out for
supporting gun control.
Yeah, for being so anti-gun, which I don't think is warranted. I agree with a lot of people who have said, I'm pissed off that we got sold out so cheap. There's no I've talked a lot about there is the funding for safety and stuff like that. That's great. That is wonderful. And honestly speaking, let's not be so selfish to think that that's not a huge victory for everybody. It is not a specific victory for the Second Amendment activists and gun owners, but I'm willing to allow it. But it would have been cool if some gun restriction was added on to lift this. But then again, I wasn't in the Senate chambers that were rewriting this and stripping off the magazine bans and the banning of sales. There was no assault weapon ban on this one, but there was a magazine ban.
There was that was proposed, but it never actually made it into the bill.
But the bill that was sent to the senators was the bill that was sent to the senators had a magazine ban, had, I believe, no, it never had the national red flag. That got stripped off. And then it also had all people from 18 to 21 no guns. And so it stripped the rights of all adults who are 18 to 21 of any firearms ownership, or at least center fire rifles. But either way, there was some bad stuff on there. They ended up stripping it off. That may have gotten close enough that the Democrats would have balked and walked away from the table and let the bill go up in flames and blamed it on them. I really don't know how the dance would have worked and all the political strategies behind it. But either way, they will unfortunately get credit from the pro-gun side of supporting gun control, but they will also get credit from the anti-gun side of supporting gun control, which who knows how well that that will work in the long run. But the last point is that this does not have legislation for red flag laws. It does have funding for states that wish to enact red flag laws, so long as they conform to this ruling. So this could be interesting because it could lead to some states like Massachusetts and Florida and the other states that have red flag laws to amend their red flag laws so that it meets this. Because it is specifically stating that for it to be a qualifying red flag law, it needs to have the right to be represented by counsel at no expense to the government. So even though this is civil court, not criminal court, you can still use a public defender to state your case against your accuser. And also that I really like this, which I don't think this exists anywhere at the time. Penalties for abuse of the program. Do any of you guys know about a red flag law or extreme risk protection order that has any reference to if somebody falsely accuses you?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't.
Because I'll tell you right now, I have been threatened with a false accusation. It luckily has not been up, but there's been 2 separate occasions where people that have some serious issues have threatened me with a red flag law, knowing that I'm from Massachusetts. And it certainly would be of a layer of comfort if they knew that there was a certain degree of risk if they were doing it just
maliciously.
Exactly. Just as a way that would hurt very, very much. Much like, I know I've seen several divorces where restraining orders were thrown out when they were not even the least bit warranted.
In my experience, that's pretty much standard procedure at this point. Whether the woman files or the man files, but definitely when the woman files, one of the first things the attorney does is file a restraining order against the husband.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is insanely common, and which means if there's firearms in there, of which in a couple of these divorces there were, they needed to find alternate homes, and thankfully the divorces that I'm speaking of all happened in the state of Maine, where you can just go over to your friend's house and dump some guns and say, hold on to these until this crap blows over. And but in the case of Massachusetts or New York or California or other states, that may be far more problematic. So yeah, this could lead to some states to shaping up their extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws. We shall see. But yeah, that's the law. I would say go a little easier on your senators and your representatives if you think they were pro-gun and now think that they've sold us out. I personally don't think that's the case.
One of the ways you can look at this is it could have been a punch in the nose. Instead, it was a slap on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for those of us on the pro-gun side with major legislation, that's about the best we can hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever we get one of these bipartisan compromises, and that word they keep using, I do not think it means what I think it means.
Right.
We give up more of something, and they give up getting all they want. That's not a compromise. I would like to see an actual compromise. Like, okay, you want juvenile records to be accessible to the next check? Great. We want SBS and SBRs off of the NFA. Oh, you want something else that I can live with? I'm not coming to mind.
National reciprocity.
Well, I was going to say something that the anti-gunners want that I could live with. And then, okay, let's take suppressors off the NFA.
Mm-hmm.
And then national. So what we are getting is not actually expanding our rights. We are just losing less of them. To quote Law Dog, I want my cake back, my entire cake.
That was one thing we were all kind of talking about secretly when I think we might have talked about it on the show as well, when Trump was talking about wanting to do a bump stock ban after the shooting in Las Vegas. And we all talked about, hey, one cool thing he might be able to do is say, hey, all your bump stocks are considered machine guns, but I don't want to confiscate or have you destroy your property. So why don't I just open the registry so you can register any machine guns you may have to make yourself kosher with the law? That would be absolutely amazing. People could register every AR in their collection as a machine gun, and then
whether it's got the third hole or not, just register it now.
But once it's on the registry, they could drill third holes, they can shorten the barrel, they can do all sorts of fun stuff. They can get they can put a drop-in auto sear in it. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do once you have a firearm on the NFA registry. So that was something I was hoping for, and unfortunately we got nothing. So I think we've done that one to death. Unfortunately, there's the next story that I've got here is not a great one. And I mean, there is some lessons to be learned here, but there was a spree shooting, and it was in Norway, and unfortunately
in Oslo.
Yeah, it was a
gay bar that was celebrating Pride Month.
Correct.
Yep. The only vague blessing from this is he only killed 2 people and he injured 21.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the horror of gunfire in a crowded place is the number of casualties.
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrifying what happened, but we can at least be thankful that it wasn't worse, I guess. It's a strange thing to be thankful for.
Do we have any information on the gun used? I heard somewhere that it was full auto, but I have not been able to verify that.
It wouldn't surprise me because oftentimes in an area where firearms are greatly restricted, gee, if it's going to be the same ticket for a semi-auto as it is for full auto,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't seen any, and I heard the same thing, but I haven't seen any confirmation on that.
Yeah, I have no idea what gun he used. I was actually just looking at a fresh one, though. I've got to say, again, this is not to make light of the tragedy in Norway in any way, shape, or form, but I will point out that statistics that are constantly used against us here in the United States is that spree killings are unique to America, and we're the only nation that sees these sort of things.
Right.
And if only we had European-style gun control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well,
like
and
they do in Norway.
And to that point, according to the Reuters article that you posted in the show notes, quote, authorities said the suspect, a 42-year-old Norwegian citizen of Iranian origin, was believed to be a radicalized Islamist with a history of mental illness who had been known to intelligence services since 2015.
Yeah, we've not heard this story before, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all too common on the shooter ends up, killing a bunch of people and they were known to authorities. And there's always been some level of inaction from all the various shooters, from the Pulse nightclub shooter to the shooter at
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas,
who tried
Uvalde.
to turn himself in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Uvalde. All of these people had the shooter in Buffalo. All of them.
The church shooter in was it South Carolina?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much all of them
Have
had
been
made
known
their
to
presence
authorities.
known to law enforcement long before they shot. They ended up doing any damage, and nothing happened. And
now, in fairness, just simply being known to authorities could mean anything, and
Right.
there is the issue, the same issue as the red flag laws of
What
but has he actually done anything to that steps over the line before this?
And another devil's advocate type thing, for especially the Nordic countries, a radicalized Islamist, they don't have the manpower to track all of them.
That's true.
I mean, it's tragically bad, but it's true, is almost every country in the EU has had a dramatic influx of immigrants from the Mideast, many of whom, it turns out, were radicalized, either before or after their trip. The part that gets me is history of mental illness. That's also really vague.
Yeah.
That could be, he got a divorce, he went to see a therapist for depression. Or, wow, he's cray-cray, but not enough to commit him.
Right. Or he has been committed and was released.
He might have done a voluntary commitment of his own, which I don't know about in Norway, but in many U.S. states, a voluntary self-commitment does not ban you from firearms.
Right.
And further, I've said this before. I'll say it again. There have been studies where they have done double-blind studies where they've had professionals look at the case files of people with mental illness who have done nothing wrong, and people with mental illness who have gone on to do horrible, horrible things. And the mental health clinicians have found it essentially impossible to predict who is going to be violent with that clinical diagnosis and who is not going to. There is no essentially profile for a school shooter or a spree shooter. Right. And, I will bring up, there was a relative of mine who was severely schizophrenic, and this person they were a lawyer, and then their mental illness took hold, and essentially they lived on public assistance through their entire life until they passed away. And so they were not, coping with mental illness. They were consumed by it. And even that being said, this person, I think that they were on their number was blocked on every government facility whatsoever, because he would call and ramble to them. and they and about his various theories of what was going on, and he might even gotten belligerent with them. But as far as I know, certainly in the years that I knew him, he was much older than me, that I knew him, he never harmed anybody. So just because somebody has even severe mental illness does not mean that they are violent. And that's not just my anecdotal story. Mental health professionals have said, there's no way for us to know who the safe ones are and who the dangerous ones are.
Oh, and slight correction, according to that Reuters article, 2 weapons, including a fully automatic gun, were retrieved from the crime scene.
Now, again, we've got to take that with a grain of salt because it's the media reporting that.
Fair.
I mean, was it fully automatic, semi-automatic, or fully semi-automatic?
That's fair, but that's the best information we have. So
right, but it hasn't been 48 hours yet. So
I will also note that Norway, considerably smaller country than the United States, and yet they had the shooting at the Christian camp, which also the shooter also used explosives to kill other people. And then we had the this recent shooting, and then the one that we reported on where the person had a bow and arrow and I believe some sort of bladed weapon.
Yep.
And that was this one. They only killed 2 people on Pride Day. That one was a full on, a full on spree killing. So Norway, I know Finland was actually was pretty high on the list, but I haven't heard.
Was it Norway that had the attack that included the guy with a mortar?
Not aware of this, but either way, Norway seems to be very, very high. And I don't, depending on how you want to adjust the numbers for population and area or any of that, Norway is having a very, very high level of spree killing active shooters out there. And so, and I know that before that, Finland had a number of problems, and thankfully they seem to have settled down. I haven't heard of any serious issues in Finland recently, but again, this is not something that just happens in the United States. This is something that happens in other countries all over the world. Mm-hmm. And it's, if you think that we can legislate our way out of spree killers, you're full of it.
I can't find it, so never mind. Let's move on to something happier.
Well, there's one more vegetable that we need to eat before we can move on to the happy part, which is there. I'm not sure if we talked about this on the last time, but and I don't want to really. Well, we could talk a little bit. There's a couple of new events, but essentially, it has officially been confirmed that the door to the classroom in Uvalde was never locked.
Yeah.
The police said in what I've always said was a CYA move of saying
I thought that was further down with all the other Uvalde stuff.
Yeah, well, I don't know who put that there. I wanted to put the Supreme Court at the to close out the show, but the Uvalde police said, no, we weren't disobeying our active shooters training, which they absolutely were.
They claimed it wasn't an active shooter; it was a barricade situation.
Yes, but unfortunately, to be a barricaded suspect, one must have a barricade, and that was not true. And so,
not actively be murdering the captives.
That's correct. That is correct. So this was, again, just horrible miscarriage. And again, people talk about, oh, it's magazines. Oh, it's semi-automatics. Oh, it's rifles with features. When the bigger factor is, I mean, there are several people that were confirmed to have bled out here, where they were wounded, but not in such a way for them to have been instantly killed. And if they had had medical assistance, they might have been able to make at least a partial recovery from their injuries. And they were allowed to pass away because police did absolutely nothing. And also They talked about
if we keep on dwelling on this, I'm not going to have an appetite for dessert.
Yeah. So either way, I just wanted to bring that up is that when you're hearing people talking about these events and making it seem like the shooter's hardware or equipment or tactics were what led to a certain body count, one must realize that if we don't use the tools that we have, such as the police with active shooter training, doing what they're going to do, which is seek out the shooter.
Actually leading.
Exactly. And leadership actually leading. This is not going to go. And the fact that the police are completely unaccountable for this. And I don't think Texas, even if they wanted to get super angry with them, if they could do anything, because the law shelters them so much from this malpractice.
Mm-hmm. And I've said it before, and I say it again. I in no way endorse, physical retribution on these officers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I don't believe in vigilante justice, but I am surprised that there hasn't been anything. Because I'm surprised that one of the parents of these kids hasn't snapped.
Yeah. Oh, and just as another little aside, do you know who gave the word vigilante?
No.
The Romans. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It was the Vigiles. They were the guard. Basically, they were originally fire guard, and they would walk around Rome and other large cities at night with spears looking for trouble, or, as according to some of the stories I've read, avoiding trouble if they found it.
You missed a perfectly good pun, because you could have said that they roamed around at night.
I considered that, but...
Why show restraint now?
But you're not Xander?
Well,
that is true. This is not an ACP blooper reel.
Yes and no.
All right. Well, I think, I am actually surprised that if it's a city council or whatever the governing body that is over Uvalde hasn't simply demanded the resignation of everybody who is involved in this, because if you are the type of person who can stand outside and let women and children die on the other side, even though your training says, active shooter training says, even if you see a wounded child or a wounded teacher as you enter an active shooter situation, ignore them and keep moving, because the sooner you can engage the shooter, the sooner you can bring an end to this. And that's the point. And the longer you avoid contact with the shooter, the more people are going to die. And this is exactly what happened there. And if that's what you're going to do, I think he chose the wrong line of work. Maybe you don't deserve to go to prison. Maybe you don't deserve divine retribution, but I definitely think you shouldn't be a cop anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Dessert.
Yay!
Erin?
Yes?
What happened this week?
Well, there was one Supreme Court decision. Just one.
Just one.
Just one.
The same number as Highlander movies. There was only one.
Well, the Supreme Court only releases decisions Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yes.
And this was the Thursday decision.
So the long-awaited decision regarding NYSRPA versus Bruen was released. And wow, it is a barn burner. Wow, that sounded really bad.
Yeah, well,
but it had bad. Weird, save me.
So, who wrote the decision, Erin?
Okay, I know the answer, but why are you setting me up for this?
Well, you were wanting me to save you. It was done by Clarence Thomas, and it was done by Clarence. It was released on his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And how long has Clarence Thomas been waiting to write a decision like this?
How long has he been on the Supreme Court?
Pretty much.
When did he get accepted into law school? Especially Clarence Thomas. I guarantee he had dreams of being a Supreme Court justice, like when he was a freshman in law school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or what do they call it? Do they have names? Well, your dad was a lawyer, Oddball. Do they have names for? There's just for first year. They call it first year law students, right?
Yeah.
They don't. They're not called freshmen again. But yeah.
No.
So anyway, this decision was passed, and it has all the right people in a tizzy because, okay, I'm not going to put my own spin on things. I actually asked Benjamin Blatt if he would give me a lawyer's reading of it, just in case I missed something. Because, for example, I looked and I didn't find anything about strict scrutiny. But here's what he said. According to this ruling, there is no more intermediate two-step scrutiny or even strict scrutiny. 6 states and D.C. need to axe their may issue language, which means that as of that ruling, I mean, I know it still needs to be enforced, and there's probably going to be all sorts of lawsuits about it. But according to the Supreme Court, there are no more may issue states in the country. Everything is now shall issue. Continuing, the 43 states with shall issue are fine, so long as the shall issue is based on objective, reasonable measures. This does extend the right to carry arms outside the home, adopting the Heller standards nationwide. This supports the Second Amendment as inclusive of modern common arms, not just muskets. And it suggests that this may be extended to all arms, such as knives, magazine limits, things like that. The emphasis on reasonable regulation of dangerous or unusual arms is suggestive that the court is not going to be dismantling the National Firearms Act anytime soon, which is unfortunate. And I know we're going to touch on this later, what with New York City wanting to declare every damn place a sensitive place and have their gun control. But according to this decision, sensitive places are as historically recognized. Schools, government buildings, polling places, things like that. And so he basically preemptively told New York City, no, you can't declare the entire island of Manhattan a sensitive space. Not mentioned here, but one thing that I do know, because I read it myself, is he specifically called out, okay, you can have regulations for... Thomas basically says, look, you can have a fee for getting a license. You can have someone prove that they are competent with a gun. You can do all these things, and that's fine. But he specifically says, but don't go overboard because we're watching. And if you try to make this regulation a burden, we're going to slap you down. I'm highly paraphrasing, but it is in there.
Which is awesome because... when Heller came out, so many states have ignored it, and that has been something that we've heard from SCOTUS, is that
in our own communities.
Yeah, we need to we need to have another Second Amendment case so we can go through with SCOTUS, go through with Heller, and make sure that no, we actually mean it. You can't just disrespect the Supreme Court. And I will say that Heller. And I'm not terribly upset because I wasn't expecting the NFA to go with anyone hearing that isn't specifically about NFA items. Just because, again, this is all incremental. And like I say to everybody, we did not lose our Second Amendment rights overnight. Yep. We lost all of this stuff drip by drop. And we might be able to, instead of something that we lost one drip at a time, we might be able to get, a glass of our rights back in one fell swoop. Like
maybe
we
in
did
a short
here.
picture.
Yeah.
Yes. but we're not going to get them all back overnight and have everything restored back to the point where, hey, everyone, you want to go halvesies on an aircraft carrier?
That would be a group buy, not halvesies.
Yeah.
And so, I just want to. There's a great phrase that addresses what we're just talking about and what we're all kind of humming about. Is when people demand all or nothing, they generally get nothing.
Yeah.
And that needs to be explained to members of certain state-level pro-gun groups.
That might
not
be
naming any names. Not naming it.
So I know, because I'm looking at the show notes, we're going to talk about the various attorneys general or governors or whatevers of these 7 states. And there are quite a few of them who are basically saying, nuh-uh, make us. Or, we're not going to do it. And before we delve into that, because I know you guys are going to want to talk about it for quite some time, and while I still have the talking conch, I want to say this. So I mentioned before, when I talked about this, I don't remember which episode it was a long time ago, but I told you that I worked very closely with the law firm that drafted the amicus, however you say that brief.
I've heard it as amicus.
Amicus brief.
Amicus,
right.
Yeah.
And I want to do a shout out to, I believe his name is David Nightingale over at Beck Ridden, who wrote this, and he did a fantastic job. And he did such a fantastic job that information from that brief was quoted in the decision. Now, it wasn't quoted by Clarence Thomas. It was quoted by the extremely conservative Justice Alito in his concurring opinion. And I believe it was on page 5 of his concurrence. I don't remember what page it was on in the PDF. I think it was like 74, 75, something like that. And so he tells the story, which people who know me will have heard the story before. He tells the story of Austin Falk, who was a young gay man in Arkansas where, 4 homophobes pulled up in a pickup truck, and it's like, they shouted something very homophobic, hey, F-word, get AIDS and die. And the Falk's companion, I don't mean that in a sexual way, just the person he was with, shouted something vulgar back, and then, the 4 of them got out, one with a baseball bat, another with a tire iron, at which point Falk's companion produced a gun, pointed it at them, fired a shot over their heads, and those 4 men decided they needed to be elsewhere. And this story was told by Jonathan Rauch in a Salon article dated March 14th, 2000, titled Pink Pistols. This was literally the origin of the Pink Pistols group, because the founder, Douglas Crick, aka Cricket, he read this and he went, hey, this is a great idea, we should do it. And so that's how the Pink Pistols was created. And this was one of the articles I forwarded to Mr. Nightingale. And the fact that the origin of the Pink Pistols was quoted in this judicial opinion is phenomenal. It does say brief for DC Project Foundation et al. And, well, the thing is, we did a joint filing. It wasn't just us. It was Operation Blazing Sword Pink Pistols, along with the DC Project and Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Ownership. And the way these things work is that it's done in alphabetical order. And D in DC comes before J or O or P, and so that's why it's referred to as DC et al. But trust me, that is the Pink Pistols, and I am, pun fully intended, I am just tickled pink that we had a hand in this. And I'm going to claim just a tiny bit of credit. I'm going to claim 1%. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have gone in our favor if we hadn't done this. I'm just saying that we helped. And I am so very proud that Pink Pistols, and yeah, under my tenure, helped make this wonderful ruling happen. And if I don't accomplish anything else in this life, if I do nothing else via Blazing Sword, when I'm feeling really, really down on myself, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to go, I helped kill May Issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very proud of that. But again, I don't want to take anything away from NYSRPA or anyone else who did this. It's just this little crumb is mine, and I'm so very proud to have been a part of this historic decision.
And you have every right to be proud of that. And I don't know how the justices came to their decisions either, but yeah, I completely agree that these types of amici,
briefs. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go with briefs. These kind of unpronounceable briefs definitely affected. And just for reference, since Erin was mentioning this, it is on page 74 of the overall PDF provided by the Supreme Court Document Center.
And I want to, again, before we get into the fun dealing with the media outrage, I want to point out two things. Three things. One, as Erin said, this doesn't get rid of. This doesn't go as far as saying any license is an infringement. Shall issue with reasonable requirements is still kosher. But it does actually, the decision did explicitly state that the right to carry a weapon
outside your home
in general public for the purposes of self-defense is central to the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It also mentioned in one of the footnotes that additional cases could be, which is legal speak for should be, brought against those licensing schemes that have excessive wait times, costs, etc.
Right. The other thing is, I just think it is wonderful that Justice Thomas, a black man,
I know where you're going, and yes,
put out a Supreme Court decision in support of the Second Amendment, citing the Dred Scott decision, where he cited that one of the reasons given for not recognizing free black men as citizens of the United States was because, well, if we recognize them as citizens, then they would be afforded all the rights of citizens, including the right to bear arms, and we can't have those black people having guns.
Yep. One of the other things, I haven't read the entire decision, and honestly, even if I did read the entire decision, I don't have the background to understand all of the fine points. Not even close. Sure. But it's one thing that we've all heard about Thomas is that Thomas doesn't talk a lot during the deliberations and the Supreme Court hearings.
Mm-hmm.
He's very parsimonious with his words, and that is also true in this opinion, because the overall length of the entire document is 135 pages. 69 of those pages, nice, are Thomas's portion. The rest of it is technically 63 pages are his decision. You know, there's the introductory stuff, then there's the concurrence and the dissent. So 63 pages out of a 135 page document is Thomas basically going through and saying, no, did I stutter?
Yeah, and I was my big concern about this case wasn't that NYSRPA would not win it. I was confident that the New York requiring a good reason for you to actually exercise your right, I was confident that would be struck down as unconstitutional. I was concerned that it was going to be an extremely narrowly written decision, so that it might only affect that one question and specifically with New York. And this was not narrow.
No, it was beautiful. And as I said before, everyone knows I lived in New York. I think by this point, everyone knows I was well involved with NYSRPA while I was there, life member, contributor to the newsletter. I knew Tom. I know Tom and his family. And I can just imagine when this decision came out, I can just imagine Tom dancing a jig.
Yeah.
And he earned it because he has been pushing this for over a decade.
Right. And from what I understand, also, the Supreme Court doesn't let Thomas write many decisions.
No, because
reason. he can kind of go off the chain and chew through the leash.
The fact that Roberts gave Thomas this one of all cases,
it
was like, okay, does Thomas have like photos of him in a delicate situation or something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
this one.
It might be because the Supreme Court in general is upset at the way. Well, they ruled very clearly on Heller, and a lot of states are going, la, 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 we can't hear you. Mm-hmm. And so I get the feeling that Roberts basically went, these mofos are disrespecting us. Did we stutter? Mm-hmm. No. Clarence, you take it. And I've just got this mental image.
Clarence, you're on.
I've just got this image of Judge Thomas just typing furiously, just, I'm so angry. I've been backed up for 30 years. You know?
I actually have a picture when Robert said, Clarence, do it. And Thomas ripping his shirt off, revealing all the muscles, and just pounding away at the typewriter.
Uh-huh. Muscles and Mr. T gold chains.
And frankly, I have the image of okay, we're not going to let you off the leash, but have you seen those retractable dog leashes that they have that have like a 25-foot
I had one
to it
for my dogs.
So we're going to use that and just let it run.
Yeah. So Heller and McDonald were the right to keep. They were saying that the country and the state could not bear could not ban your ability to keep a firearm in your home, but they did not say anything about and bear. Mm-hmm. NYSRPA versus Bruen is 100% the and bear part of the right to keep and bear arms, and so it is absolutely awesome. And thank you, Justice Thomas, and thank you all of the Supreme Court justices for going through. I was super disappointed that Elena Kagan was not in favor of this because she asked some very, very good questions. And
I was honestly surprised at her vote, but we all know it's very politicized.
It's one of the things that I cautioned people while the arguments were happening. That
I remember you doing that.
I watched the Heller case go through, and if you judged it by the questions that the justices asked, you would have thought it would have been a 9-0 decision, and it ended up being 5-4. So you never
count their chickens.
Yeah, just because they ask questions leaning one way or the other doesn't necessarily mean anything about their decisions.
And the 9-0 comment remind me of something. Remember when there was all the talk about how Biden could pack the Supreme Court, add 4 or however many more justices to get the decisions that they wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Supreme Court came out with like 3 9-0 decisions in a row.
Yeah.
That was a message.
And there were,
I think, was also a message.
Yeah, there were in this cycle, there were a number of like 9-0, 8-1 cases, but they were cases that very few people were actually paying attention to.
Yeah. I know that at least a couple of them were maybe not major cases, but still restricted government authority.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a number of them were ones that you look at the case and you go, how did this get this far? This is no.
Why didn't some lower court just throw it out and say, stop it?
Because politics.
Yeah. And it also could very well have been the ninth.
The Ninth Circus. Yep.
With the big shoes. So that's been ruled, and as cut and dry as the very, very well written decision was, a whole bunch of people have stepped forward and responded. I will actually start with the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul.
Shouldn't I start with the governor of New York, and you can get the future governor of Massachusetts?
Oh, David, don't you dare. You should shut your mouth.
Don't you put that evil on me.
Don't you put that evil on the people of Massachusetts. Even the liberal ones don't deserve that.
Well, yeah. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, who apparently did not read the decision or get briefed on what was in the decision, was quoted as saying at a press conference, here's the quote, "I would like to point out to the Supreme Court justices that the only weapons at the time were muskets. I'm prepared to go back to muskets." Where Thomas's decision specifically states that, no.
Yeah.
And let me just say, doing that foolish originalist line, the response that she did, I saw it on the internet, and it's linked in the show notes, and you guys can go either through your podcasting app or through assortedcalibers.com to click on the link to Twitter, where it will have Kathy Hochul saying these very stupid words. And it is, I believe, was it CNN that she was doing it for? There was a watermark.
I don't remember the network.
MSNBC.
She was doing it on television, which also didn't exist at the time the First Amendment was written.
And furthermore, she is a woman holding public office.
Which also wasn't allowed when the Constitution was ratified.
They couldn't even vote.
Or hold property or sign contracts.
Actually, most white men couldn't vote either. You had to be a property owner.
Yep.
It's like, is this the genie bottle you really want to open? It won't end the way you think.
Because, you just want to pick and choose and say, oh, yeah, it only applies to muskets. Well, first up, read the decision. No, it doesn't. And also, may I also note that, yes, she has an armed security detail.
With muskets.
That are carrying semi-automatic pistols, and they've probably got rifles and various other fun stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So this is.
And I would like to point out the top of page 3 of Thomas's decision, the end of the paragraph at the very top of page 3. Its reference to arms does not apply only to those arms in existence in the 18th century.
Yes, just like the. Just like he also explicitly stated that you cannot declare specifically. He cited Manhattan. You cannot declare Manhattan as a sensitive area.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he was in the page 3 paragraph he's actually referencing Heller.
Yeah.
So much of his opinion is like, okay, what sort of crazy thing are they going to try? I'm going to cut that off right now.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, it's not, as far as I've heard, it is not actually in legislation in New York yet, but I still have folks I know in New York who passed little tidbits on to me, and one of them was a proposal to be included in a future law that all business owners, possibly all property owners, would be required to put up a sign allowing firearms on their property, but the default would be not allowed.
Yes,
I mentioned
that has been proposed.
Oh, it has actually gotten farther. All right, because I had heard about it when it was just assembly muttering. So how's that crap?
Right.
Yeah, but So that's what's some of the stuff that's going on in New York. There's more stuff. They did at the county level in New York. The response has been quite varied, with some county, if they have a pistol clerk or the county AG or whatever, saying, "Yep, ignore the whole hunting target shooting, that doesn't exist anymore. Ignore the just cause, that doesn't exist anymore." And other counties saying, "Well, we're going to keep doing what we were doing until the law changes," even though the Supreme Court says that law doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, so
it's a mixed bag.
Technically,
yeah, I know. Technically, they can't just say the law doesn't exist.
The Supreme Court simply threw it back to the appellate court with instructions on, no, this is how you're supposed to rule.
You can't do this. You got to fix it.
Right. So
the
appellate court has, I think, 10 to 60 days. I think.
Right. And most of the counties that I have heard about, the ones outside of New York City, Buffalo, Rochester, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much most of them are well, if you look at a map of the anti-safe statements by counties, it's most of them.
Yeah.
And those are the counties saying, "Okay, the Supreme Court said this, we got to do it."
Yep.
And there are a few holdouts and a few who are sticking their fingers in there going, "No, no, 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 no."
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting going forward, because those counties who choose either to drag their feet or simply ignore this ruling are going to be the minority of counties in the state when the next lawsuit goes through.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling if NYSRPA brings a follow-up lawsuit on basically the same thing to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's not going to be happy.
Oh, no. And I mean, and especially if for some reason, New York is what, 4th district of appellate courts?
Thought it was the second, but maybe it's the 4th.
Second? Maybe it's second. But whatever appellate court district thereof, if they don't just go, "No, SCOTUS has told us that you can't do this," then SCOTUS is going to let Thomas off the leash more.
They might just go, "Click, you're good. Go."
Yeah.
Run him down.
So can I move to Massachusetts?
Well, you already live there, so you don't have to.
I mean, yes. So I will read Maura Healy's statement. In a country flooded with firearms, today's reckless and anti-democratic decision, may I note that we live in a republic, not a democracy, poses a grave danger.
Technically, you live in a commonwealth.
I mean, I live in a commonwealth, yes.
Stop interrupting, David.
It makes him twitch. So it's funny. But since you asked, I will stop.
Yes, poses a grave danger to Americans as they go about their daily lives in public spaces like supermarkets, hospitals, and playgrounds. I carry in all those places. Gun violence is a public health epidemic, and I remain committed to doing everything I can to keep our residents and communities safe. Massachusetts has one of the lowest gun death rates in the country, minus Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine and New Hampshire, which are right next door and have constitutional carry. And has one of the lowest gun death rates in the country because we know the strong gun laws save lives. I stand by our common sense gun laws and will continue to vigorously defend and enforce them. So first up, that's all crap, because Massachusetts is, yes, it is actually a remarkably safe state compared to many of the states in the union. Unfortunately, like many of the states that are somewhat more dangerous than others with lax gun law, or with either tight gun laws or lax gun laws, we don't ever talk about the ones like right next door that don't do that, because people can freely move. And New Hampshire and Maine and Vermont are really, really safe states. And while Vermont recently had some anti-gun laws through, it's been a safe state overall. So no,
historically, Vermont tends to come in at the bottom of state violence.
Mm-hmm.
And Vermont has been constitutional carry before that was a term, back when it was still called Vermont carry.
Yep.
Yep. They just never up until this recent rash of crappy gun laws that they've had. They have essentially never ever touched a gun law. The only gun laws that existed, like you couldn't own a suppressor in Vermont until very recently. They got that off, but that was literally a hunting law. The game wardens were concerned that people were going to use suppressors to poach game animals. But either way, super duper duper safe. And you could argue about population centers and population density and diversity and all that. None of those things are guns.
Yep.
And I will point out that A.G. Healy happens to be a lesbian. And she also happens to be married to a woman who happens to be an appeals court judge. And
So going back to the rules of the founding.
Well, and I will also state that gay marriage, I don't know about now, but back when gay marriage was not legal anywhere in the country, and I believe Massachusetts was the first state to have gay marriage, and I applaud that, and I support gay marriage wherever they have it. I just don't necessarily support the methods to which we got here.
Mm-hmm.
It was overall essentially an unspoken rule is that because of the level of Catholics here, because of the level of trade union Democrats, possibly certain minority communities here in Massachusetts, that gay marriage is actually wildly was wildly unpopular. I don't know about now, but at the time,
think now it's been in place long enough that it is.
I would hope so, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. New York, just in comparison. Mm-hmm. New York tried to pass gay marriage several times and it always failed. But then a different law was passed and suddenly gay marriage kind of sailed through the legislature. That other law was no-fault divorce. Prior to, I think it was 2010 or 2011, in New York, in order to get divorce, it had to be because of adultery, abandonment, or abuse.
Oh,
so at the risk of poking a nest, Weer'd, I think I need you to develop what you were saying about how you don't approve how we got here for gay marriage. What do you mean?
For at least, I haven't actually followed the Supreme Court case that made it the law of the country, but Massachusetts was the first state to have gay marriage in the United States, and that was through a Supreme Court ruling. And I've got to say the Supreme Court ruling, I didn't necessarily agree with. The founding is essentially saying that it was innately written in the Massachusetts Constitution that was written by, John Adams and Sam Adams and John Hancock and all those people who I don't think were as open-minded about queer rights as we were. And so the fact that Maura Healey is married because of a Supreme Court decision now, and one that I would argue was not particularly well-founded, and now one that was so well written out that states, no, you can't, and the Constitution means what it says it means, God damn it, is going to say, I'm going to ignore this and keep enforcing unconstitutional gun laws, I find absolutely disgusting. But it's Maura Healey, so you shouldn't be surprised.
I'm pretty sure I know what you mean, but you should probably find a better way to phrase that, because someone is going to take offense at the, well, what do you mean you don't agree with, how can you be for gay marriage and yet disagree with the decision, is what I'm getting at.
And my overall statement is that the Massachusetts Constitution is a very old document, and really queer rights is a remarkably new thing that is being complicated. I mean, come on. Do you know off the top of your head when homosexuality was taken off of the DSM, Erin?
No.
It was either the 50s or the 60s, but
I honestly thought it was
it was
later than that.
Oh, okay. Well, even more. Jeez, I was too conservative here. But yes,
keep in mind, Weer'd, the Stonewall riots were 1969.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I believe there were 69.
It was very
1973.
73.
Wow.
There was something else in 69 that happened, but it might have been a lot smaller. Or I'm just not remembering correctly. But yeah, 73
was when Stanley Kubrick shot the moon landing on location.
Yes, because he's a perfectionist.
Yes.
But yeah, so 73 even later.
Yes. So as early as recently as 73, homosexuals were considered mentally ill by the leading professionals in the psychiatric world. So
but we have to follow the science.
Yes, and there were sodomy laws, and there were all sorts of things. So, in my opinion, the best way to handle it would be either a representative law passing, very similar to the law that was passed, this week on that we just talked about at the top of the show. A bill being presented by the representatives, or a referendum of the people, and neither one of those things were done. And I agree with gay marriage, and I would hate to say it needs to be nullified, but also at the same time, we're a nation of laws and we have rules, and I don't think we were following the rules when it came to that.
Yeah, one of the big concerns with relying on a Supreme Court decision without passing supporting laws is that if, like Dred Scott, even though some pieces of that are still in play, for the most part, Dred Scott has been nullified by later decisions.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been left standing longer and other legislation supporting that horrible precedent hadn't been made, when that was nullified, it would have just collapsed the whole sandcastle. So, yeah, I am not an ends justify the means kind of person, not at all. But I do sometimes fall into the a good thing can still be good even if it wasn't necessarily arrived at by the best method.
I mean, I concur with that. Again, I'm not saying that if you happen to listen to this and you are in a same-sex marriage, I am not saying that it should be nullified. I am not saying that I don't support it. I am just upset by that method, and I know for a fact that some of the people that oppose gay marriage are using that as a means to disregard the sanctity of gay marriage in this country, and I think especially now that we have had it for, a number of years in some states and a few less years in all the others, that we can use to show that no, there's not going to be pillars of salt and frogs and blood being raining from the sky because, oh no, same-sex couples are allowed to get married.
Yeah, and the blood, flies, frogs, moraine, that kind of stuff. That's Old Testament. They don't even follow that anymore. I mean, I still do sort of in my own bizarre way.
So yeah, let's see who else do
we'll just pass over that.
Yes,
I was waiting for someone else. I gave you the time.
Yes.
Oh yes. Moving on.
Yeah. So let's see.
You wanted to do Keith Olbermann?
I do want to do Keith Olbermann just because. I mean, he's an idiot and a nobody, but again,
no, unfortunately he's not a nobody. He's a pundit and millions of people listen to his dribble.
Yeah,
that's true. He should be a nobody.
Oh god, he should be.
Yes, it has become necessary. Keith Olbermann tweeted, "It has been necessary to dissolve the Supreme Court of the United States. The first step is for this for a state the
first step is for a state the court has now forced guns upon to ignore this ruling." Now, I again have not read the entire decision. I don't recall anything about forcing guns on states. If that is going to happen, I volunteer Tennessee.
It forces it upon states in the sense of, yes, it's requiring Hawaii to actually hand out licenses.
Yeah, but it's not forcing guns upon the state. It's forcing them to abide by their own process in accordance with the Constitution.
Right.
If no one applies for that license, or not a lot of people, it's not going to make the state hand out guns to citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, again, his phrasing is meant to be inflammatory, and I'm just ridiculing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, great, you're a court. Why and how do you think you can enforce your rulings? He finishes with. And that last part, as much of a schmuck as he is, what is the penalty to states if they ignore the Supreme Court rule? I mean, I don't think we're going to see the federal government send the 101st Airborne in to deregulate pistol licensing.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. When it comes down to it, I'm not really sure that if a state really just dug their feet in and just said, nuh-uh, if the federal government is going to step in and actually do anything. Now, it's possible that what might happen is the federal government may say, okay, nope, licenses are no good at all again, and then the federal government starts instructing the states to say, no, these convictions that you're hitting people up with for simple possession,
we're avoiding them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, you know those highway funds you wanted?
I was just about to mention that.
Well, and also then the citizens can start suing the states and easily winning and just draining the state budgets.
I mean, I know that when the SAF sues cities and other municipalities, there is frequently a punitive measure involved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the same thing can happen when you sue a state. I assume, but I don't know. Does anyone know? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, after, the first couple, $1 million punitive decisions, maybe they'll stop doing it.
Maybe, but it's not their money. People who have to
that.
pay that are not the ones who are making the decisions.
They still have to justify the budgets, and if the budgets are getting eaten up by horrible lawsuits with the fact that no, this is absolutely illegal.
They also have to survive. They also have to survive the next election season.
That's more to the point, because have you ever followed the budget process in New York? It generally comes down to 3 men in a room, or now 2 men and 1 woman in a room. The state legislature can basically make suggestions, but it's basically the head of the Senate and Assembly and the governor sitting down and hammering out the details of what they're going to spend on what.
Mm-hmm.
It is not at all a transparent process. And then the people of the state are just presented with their new taxes.
So is this machine politics or is this real politic? I get confused.
New York, so I'm guessing machine politic, because a lot of this is left over from Tammany Hall, which was, I think, one of the original machine politics.
Okay.
Let's see. So who else do we have for
there's a couple of them I see here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we haven't even finished with Olbermann, because there was the first one. Yes, but then there's the next one. I don't know if I can find it now, but it's the one where and apparently this is not the first time he has made this argument, but he states, and I'm using my sarcasm font here, well, the Second Amendment says that you can keep arms and you can bear arms, but it says nothing about owning arms.
Right.
Yeah, that's the get out. You're
yes.
Just no.
Take your meds and go to bed.
Yeah.
Then there's also Piers Morgan's hot take on it. You all know how Americans love Piers Morgan commenting on U.S. law.
The man with the punchable face.
Something muskets.
Yeah. So Piers Morgan, quote, "Breaking, America's response to its recent mass shootings is to make it even easier for Americans to use guns. The Second Amendment is now being interpreted as a right to bear arms as part of an unregulated civilian militia." Tell me you have not read the Constitution without saying you never read the Constitution. Because how many militias are there mentioned in there?
I mean, I remember us doing something a little over 200 years ago to so that we don't have to pay attention to snot-nosed British idiots.
Inbred twits. I think is a phrase you're looking for. But how many
really not to curse.
That's why I went with inbred twits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But how many militias are mentioned in the Constitution?
I'm not sure about in the Constitution, but I know that in the U.S. Code there are specifically two, the organized and the unorganized.
Unorganized militia, which dates back to the founding.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just now being interpreted as a right to bear arms as part of an unregulated civilian militia. Huh. That's a surprise.
Well, that goes along with the very common lie that the antis have been spreading and truly believe that somehow the Second Amendment was never interpreted as an individual right until Heller. That's this brand new idea that somehow the Second Amendment meant that the state could own guns.
Never mind that there's no such reference of a collective idea until the anti-gunners started talking about it.
Basically until the 60s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just found David Hogg's hot take.
Oh, God.
So Erin doesn't want me to read this.
Well,
but...
it's a case of I don't want to hear it because I don't want to hear any of the feces that dribbles from his mouth, but I probably need to know it, so... All right, I'm going to take a stiff drink.
I mean, we've already heard Erin leap off the top rope to get onto to elbow drop Keith Olbermann. Just
all right. So I'm going to read this in my David Hogg voice. Not only does today's ruling endanger the American people, it also endangers the lives of the justices themselves. Unlike the justices, however, the American people do not have the privilege of Congress immediately acting to protect them. Tell me you missed the point without saying you missed the point.
Yes.
Which I would point out that in the past couple weeks, the federal law enforcement has been ignoring federal law that's there to protect and stop people from attempting to influence the justices' decisions.
Oh, yeah. And I also just came across Ron Perlman's brilliant pearl of wisdom.
Oh,
I did like this one. Ron Perlman has lost his goddamn mind. He's a brilliant actor. Unfortunately, he doesn't appear to be a brilliant anything else.
Yeah. The latest Supreme Court decision on firearms neglects to say the one thing that they actually meant to say. For whites only.
Right.
Yes.
There was somebody
Justice Thomas laughs.
There was somebody who responded afterwards that got in all the memes for that, which was Ron. It was written by a black man.
Yeah,
the grandson of slaves, if I remember correct, or descendant of slaves.
Yeah,
that's why he deleted the tweet.
Yeah, the internet's forever.
And furthermore, he referenced Dred Scott.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, this is the whole point is, I mean, again, we heard Whoopi Goldberg say on The View, hey, if blacks start owning guns, then Republicans will support gun control.
Tell me you don't know the gun community.
Yeah. Number one, I see no such evidence of that. And I see nothing but a community welcoming people of color and people of other sexes and creeds and all the aspects. We are very much a big tent, and while there is some infighting, we do try to keep it to a minimum. But at the same time, yes, the blacks are a huge growing demographic in the Second Amendment community.
What's the fellow's name?
Philip Smith.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to get his take on the extremely brutally racist comments that are being made by the anti-gunners at this point.
Hey, how about that column in the Los Angeles Times titled, "Is California Ready for More Black People to Legally Carry Guns in Public?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, why is a state that has a fairly diverse population not have many black people owning guns?
Because the black people mostly live in the deep urban areas where gun control is rampant. And so is crime.
Yeah, and I will note that I am someone who has lived under Massachusetts common sense gun laws for years, and I was denied a full permit. I was given a restricted to target and hunting only program permit, and the only reason why I was able to lift that restriction was because I bought a house in a town that doesn't that doesn't treat me like a criminal.
Well, also alongside you, both geographically and otherwise, as someone who lived under the regime that was just struck down by the Supreme Court, the first time I applied for my New York State pistol license, it was denied because the judge, and I quote, didn't think I needed one. And I had to wait until that judge retired before I applied again where I live.
How many years was that?
Let's see. That would have been 91 to 2004.
Oof.
13 years. Wow.
I mean, I probably could have done... I think he retired a few years prior to that, but I'm pretty sure he had another 10 years. Yes,
Yeah.
He's gone now, so I can say that Justice Rosen of Albany...
Crappy.
Sorry, Weer'd. You're going to have to edit that, but couldn't.
But what I was getting at is that one of the easiest ways to get all the guns you want in a state like Massachusetts, in a state like New York, is to have lots of money, so you can either relocate yourself to a place and deal with any of the economic aspects, such as driving into New York City if that's where you work, or all that is to relocate using money, or simply being rich enough, like one Donald Trump, like one Howard Stern, like one Robert De Niro, who have Manhattan or New York City
Charles Schumer.
Well, and there was that scandal a couple of years ago when in the, I believe, the Orthodox Jewish community.
Curious Joel, look it up. Yes, they were basically paying off the local administrators of the pistol licensing program to purchase pistol licenses from the county.
And I think it was like $3 or $4 grand a license.
I believe so.
I thought it was over 5, but that might have varied.
It was in the thousands.
It was in the thousands.
Yes.
And I told an acquaintance of mine about that, and their response was, well, I guess the good news is that those people were really wanting it.
No, there is no good news there.
And it's just you're saying that you think it's okay to have to pay thousands of dollars to exercise a right.
One of the things that I've been saying lately when people are getting all gun law restriction stuff is take the law that you are supporting and apply it to voting rights and tell me if you still think it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of
another SIG-U?
The Second Amendment versus other rights, Toobin on CNN stated...
Oh, Jeffrey Toobin.
Toobin being a man of with a love so big that he could only love himself in a Zoom meeting with coworkers.
Said that he was shocked and dismayed about this decision, and it was shocking that SCOTUS wants to treat the Second Amendment like a first-class right.
Yep. And the first line in the article, tell me you didn't actually read NYSRPA versus Bruen decision without saying you didn't read the Bruen text.
Well, since I mean, the good news, he was right. Thomas did specifically state that the Second Amendment should be considered a first-class right along with the rest of them. But it's just the whole...
But they didn't strike down all firearms restrictions. I wish, but...
Yes. I
wish in one hand, poop in the other.
But it's just the whole thing of the... Okay, sir.
You're being polite now.
What could you please list what are first class and second class rights, and the reason that you say that these enumerated rights in the Constitution should be given different weights?
Yeah. I mean, he's not just wrong, he is, to quote Erin, fractal wrong.
I was quoting someone else, but thank you.
Well, you're the one I heard it from, so
Yeah.
I'm quoting you.
Well,
I don't know
the thing
anyone
is,
said it first.
I got it from a webpage somewhere, and I don't know who said it. It was just one of those... Okay, this was well before Reddit, but it was just something found on Usenet, and I have no idea who said it, but it was such a great line, I had to steal it. I would attribute them, I would credit them if I could, but I don't know who they are, so I can't.
I think I first read it on Tam Keel, but I think Tam might have even been quoting Marco Close on that one. So I don't know. There's a lot of people said it, but it's a great line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still giving credit to Erin because that's where I heard it. Everything else is hearsay.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, did you guys read the statement from the big man himself at the White House?
I did actually, but do I have it listed here? Or?
I put it in the show notes.
Cool.
The big sentence, the takeaway sentence is, this ruling contradicts both common sense and the Constitution and should deeply trouble us all. This coming
needed.
Yeah, obviously a constitutional scholar right there.
Right. This coming from the constitutional scholar that has said on many occasions that you couldn't buy a cannon in the days of our founding fathers.
Yes, those warships were armed with bad language.
Yes. And David references the Brandolini's law, is that I'm sure it took Justice Thomas quite a bit of time to draft up this ruling for all of that, with all of the references and all of the research that he did. But Biden could just turn around and say, yeah, it goes against the Constitution. Okay.
Yeah, and of course the dissension opinion, or the dissenting opinion, was I haven't actually read all of it, but I know the parts that I skimmed over, it was largely playing on the emotional, well, here's how many people died, blah 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 blah, and I believe it was Alito wrote a
yes, he wrote a counter, a spanking, as someone referred to it.
Right. I forget the proper term for this is my version of the decision. It's an agreement of the actual decision, but I'm going to get my own words in.
I believe that would be the concurring opinion as opposed to the dissenting opinion. Thank
you, ma'am. He basically went ahead and went after the... It's like, this is emotional stuff. That it's not actual case law. And oh yeah, by the way, here's why you're wrong, because this number of lives have been saved by the defender having a firearm, et cetera, which also means that that's now also on record for a SCOTUS case.
Yeah, I mean it's not part of the decision,
right?
Which is just the first 63 pages that Thomas wrote, but it's included in there for reference.
Right, but is now a legal document in a legal document from SCOTUS.
Yep, and if he had just kept himself to the facts, Alito probably wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah,
and added all that other stuff.
Oh, I mean, just the salt, it's delicious.
Yeah, it really is.
See, this is where I'm different from you guys, because I can't enjoy this. I have a deep, visceral offense, really, at people who are willfully ignorant and joyfully dumb. I mean, if you just don't know, that's okay. I'm willing to talk to you. But if it's a case of, I wouldn't know anything about guns because guns are evil, and if I learn anything about it, that somehow makes me unvirtuous. It's like, oh God, no.
I understand, Erin, and there are people in my life that I've had to tell them, look, you're picking this fight with me again. The last 10 times we've had arguments about this stuff, you have proven yourself to be so woefully ignorant that I have to spend 30 minutes just going over basic facts with you
Or
before we can even start to have the argument as to why you're wrong.
and to
I'm
my
not doing
part,
this.
one of the last times we went to visit my mother, she had this tendency to pick a fight a few hours before we left because she was mad at us for leaving.
Mhm.
She didn't understand; it just made us want to leave.
Right.
And so we're sitting in the living room, and out of nowhere, she pops out with something along the lines of, well, the Second Amendment only protects militia owning guns. And I was very good, and my wife was very proud of me. And I just said, no, you're wrong, and didn't get into it. But there were other times I was not that wise. And my joke is, wisdom is my dump stat.
Right.
But she didn't like guns. She didn't want to be educated about them. She did not want to be educated about firearms law or firearms history or anything like that. It was just guns bad. They should all be banned. No one should have guns except the military and police, which is really strange coming from someone who lost family in the Holocaust when only the military and police had guns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why I can take pleasure in the spanking of these people is I can't look on them as worse than my mother. My mother was willfully ignorant. She was practically wrong on a lot of her opinions about this, but she was still my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I will note that my own father did a similar thing just the other day, where he was really kind of just dashing all over the place on just being upset about the way the Second Amendment is going in this country, and he was pointing out the fact that people were supportive of gun control and citing the various polls that were going through. And I point out the fact that, look, it's, I looked up the Washington State background check referendum, which was by far the widest margin in the favor of gun control in the country, and noted that it was really only about 10 points that was the swing. And then I pointed out the state of Maine, where my father lives, and that even with no money coming in from the pro-gun side and a ton of money coming in from Michael Bloomberg directly, it was defeated by about 10 or 15 points.
Mm-hmm.
But he was saying, well, can't you just go to a gun show and buy whatever you want? I said, well, that depends. If you go,
depending on what I want.
Right. Yeah.
I saw a meme earlier today, which was
here. Let me finish real quick. But
okay,
I will say that he was just like, I'm like, if you depend, it depends. If you go in and the person's a licensed dealer, they can't sell it to you without a background check. Well, what about the other people? Well, they're private sales, and they can sell it well. Well, don't you think that's wrong? And I'm like, Dad, you used to own 2 guns, and you got rid of both of them by private sales. Should you be in prison? And interested if that subject was just over.
Yep.
Yeah, that was similarly. There were times that I'd be talking with my dad, who had lifelong hardcore Republican, confused about the Second Amendment, and he was talking about stuff like, oh well, one of the times that there was a concerted effort for magazine bans. Well, I really don't see why people want 100 round magazines. That's fine for us to ban those. Interesting. Dad, they're talking about banning anything over 10. Oh, what's the size of the magazine in my AR-15? 30 rounds. And what's the capacity of my M1 carbine? 15. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah. The comment that I was going to make was, I saw a meme earlier today, or maybe yesterday, was, I wish I could buy stuff at gun shows that the anti-gunners say I can.
Oh, yeah. Dear Lord, yes.
I would have a grenade launcher. I would have a howitzer.
And as we started, I really wish that when I went to the post office today,
Yep.
I could have just taken that box and gone.
And you
"Thank
should
you,
have been
ma'am,"
able to
and
legally
gone
do
home.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't need a license from the federal government to get legal products shipped to your home.
Yep.
And if the shipper wants to require additional insurance or require same day, next day, second day, whatever, that's the shipper's choice as a business.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
All right, now I've got to switch to this other one. So this one comes out of Connecticut. Governor Murphy is noting that because Connecticut has been a major state, they don't have many gun-free zones at all within the state, and therefore, now that they shall issue, they're in desperate need of common sense gun control. and that's one of the dirty little secrets that doesn't get talked about too often. I live here in Massachusetts. It was a pain in the butt for me to get my permit, but once you get your permit, there really aren't that many restrictions on where I can and can't go with a firearm within the state, including
same was true with New York for the most part.
Yep. And the reason behind that is, of course, if you restrict the access to the gun to only the rich and powerful, well,
you're not going to restrict them further.
Yeah, it would be a damn shame if somebody didn't know, like in Tennessee, Tennessee has the park rule. Is that am I remember that correct, Oddball, or were they trying to make it?
You can now carry in state and city parks, but you may be thinking of when the NRA convention was in Nashville. We were still trying to get that passed.
Yeah, but yeah,
and some parks were grandfathered.
Yeah, so with the idea of
Knoxville disagrees with you.
Yeah,
they disagree with the state government as well.
That gets into the Knoxville has tried to do similar to what Nashville did, which was the city attorney of Nashville declared that, the amphitheater that's on park grounds, that is not a building for recreation because I don't consider going to a concert recreation.
Okay.
Yep. And also in Knoxville, Chilhowie Park and Convention Center was declared by the mayor of the city of Knoxville as not a park when there's a gun show going on.
Right. Yeah. It's not that it was grandfathered in by the state law, because the state law.
Yeah. Well, that's how he explained it.
But there's a couple cities that have done shenanigans and somehow not been spanked for it yet.
Yeah. The governor and or attorney general of Tennessee really needs to step.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different episode.
Yeah. But either way, what I'm saying is that, if someone's walking across a grassy area and they did not realize it's a prohibited park, or they're sitting down to have a burger and didn't realize the fact that there's beer on the menu, that is now a restricted area for carrying a firearm. Well, you don't want to have the police shaking down somebody for a very trivial infraction when they're somebody's nephew or somebody's cousin or a very powerful member of society. And so because of that, they will limit the number of restricted areas to the most obvious. So yeah, there's absolutely that. See, there's such a huge list of stuff that we've got here.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of other links. I don't think we need to go into any more Uvalde stuff, do we?
No, we've covered the Uvalde stuff. And,
we talked about Toobin. We talked about Murphy.
I've got
California.
Yeah, I've got the one where California is contemplating. Again, they're trying to figure out mental gymnastics as a way to get around this, and they're trying to turn around and say if somebody has ideological views that may construe them as being quote unquote racist or full of hatred as a means to deny them, which I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Interesting, not the right word.
Yeah, they no longer can use good cause, and some of them are trying to resurrect good character, which thankfully good character has never been used to exclude people of certain demographics.
Laughs in Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Noted, said by a practicing Jew.
Yeah, well, I need the practice because I'm not so good at it most of the time.
Who is half Jewish and half Italian.
Yep.
David.
Yes. It's not my fault.
Just because you are a character does not mean you have good character, evidently.
Hey, I got a New York State pistol license in the city of Albany. So apparently you're wrong.
Take that.
Yeah. Neener and neener.
Yeah.
But yeah, the article you're referencing, I mean, this is the one where they said, well, we can't deny you for that, so now we're gonna start stalking you on social media and seeing if you have any wrong things so we can deny you that way, which now is a First Amendment violation.
So does that mean that that California or whoever state does this kind of thing, they have to accept the Second Amendment as a first-tier right, but the First Amendment is now a second-tier right?
That's a stretch.
Yeah.
Well, if they are required by the Supreme Court to respect your Second Amendment right, and the only way they can think to get around that is by not respecting your First Amendment.
I mean, I know where you're going, but I don't know.
It's twisty turny.
It didn't amuse me.
I'm sorry.
So I'll give anybody a chance to throw out. There's a bunch more articles in here. We've been going for a while, so I think I'd rather close out on this Philadelphia story. So does anybody else have anyone that they're really interested in?
I just wanted to mention, to make sure people are aware it's there, I did put in a link to Matt Larosiere at FuddBusters, who basically goes through the NYSRPA versus Bruen decision page by page, paragraph by paragraph.
Yeah, he runs a
2.5 hour video.
Really, really good channel overall that covers commonly held gun myths. And I'll tell you right now, there was some stuff that I thought was true, and he picks out the law and all of the references and why.
He is a firearms lawyer. That's what he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But however, I would like to also add that I would really like it if we could get Ben Blatt back on for an interview about this decision, because he's going to pick out things that we just don't.
Gee, Weer'd. That sounds so very familiar.
I know, Erin.
Did I step on your toes there a little, Erin?
No, I believe Ben has some logistical things on that he would have not been able to come on in a way that would be conducive for this.
You didn't step on my toes, David. It's just I literally made the exact same argument, and Weer'd was like, I don't know. I want to do a round table instead. It's like, fine, whatever.
I mean, you could have an interview with Ben for next week.
That is my thought.
I mean, it would have been basically, if he had been on tonight, it would mostly have been Oddball and I nodding at our microphones while he talked.
Mm-hmm. Oh shoot! I forgot this one. This one got buried in the show notes as well. This is not on NYSRPA, and really the other one is only tangential to it. But this got completely buried in all the excitement. But we have 26 states that are constitutional carry now.
Yes, but no. Okay, the law was signed by the governor, but it doesn't go into effect until August 1st. But
either way, you can't unring a bell.
That's true.
I mean, it is the law. It has been signed into law. The law hasn't gone into effect yet.
It's
Schrodinger's permitless carry.
That's literally what I was saying. But yeah, Louisiana is going to be the 26th state with, I honestly don't know if it's constitutional permitless. Let's just call it unrestricted carry, as of August 1st. The only downside is that it is for residents only. But hey,
which is not uncommon, unfortunately.
Yeah, but every little ratchet of the Overton window is fine by me.
Yep. And we can now say clearly and unequivocally, as of August 1st, the states that require a permit are the minority.
Right.
Mhm.
And there's something like 36 states that allow open carry without permit.
Mhm.
And as you guys said, and same with what I said when Tennessee passed their permitless carry. Yes, it only counts towards residents, but give it a couple years of there not being rivers of blood in the streets, and we'll be able to fix that issue.
Dead bodies over parking spots.
Right.
So
that's
this
a
last
good news
story,
thing.
I had to close on, and it's from the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is
yes.
a remarkably anti-gun publication. As more people get guns and carry permits, Philly sees a sharp rise in homicides ruled justified. Gasp! Clutch
Yes.
at pearls.
Yep. Yeah. Could they have phrased that any more backhanded?
Mm-hmm. And the 3 incidents that they cite were clear. Like one of them was a someone working in cash register, armed robber with ski mask comes in with weapons, says, "Give me all your cash," and they ventilate the choir boy's head, and the other 2 that they cite were very similar. These are quite clearly good defensive shoots.
Mm-hmm. Like I always point out, whenever you have this super duper tired argument of saying, I believe Matthew McConaughey said it said it in the White House. The migratory.
All right.
Yeah, so the Migratory Birds Act limits you to 3 shells in your shotgun, and yet we're allowing people to have large magazines in their gun
when they go to hunt humans.
Yeah,
right.
To which I point out, first up, hunting humans is illegal. You're not allowed to just kill people, and you can't get a permit to kill people, even a nuisance permit.
Then why do they call it tourist season?
That is a conundrum, David.
Living in the Nashville area, yeah.
Okay, David, as a Floridian, I have literally, I am not joking, seen bumper stickers that say, "If it's called tourist season, why can't we shoot them?" Or hunt them.
I live within about an hour of the most used entrance to the Smoky Mountain National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in upstate New York, which every autumn we would have what we commonly called leaf peepers, to use the polite term, who were nuisances.
But yes, the statement is that no, we don't allow hunters to have, drum magazines in their shotguns when they are hunting ducks, because we would like there to continue to be ducks. And we don't want things to be like the passenger pigeon that we wiped off the face of the earth. And, but when it comes to shooting criminals and violent people and school shooters and all that, I don't think there should be a bag limit. I think I would be fine if we could rid ourselves completely of this scourge. So yeah,
yes,
these people that are upset that we have just gotten a huge bonus in our rights are also upset about people defending their own lives against the worst of the worst, the type of person who will, stick their gun in your face and ask for your wallet. And of course, the old statement is, nobody's, the content of your wallet's not worth somebody's life. Yeah, but they're threatening my life over the content of my wallet. So I think they
think it's worth my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Why should I think less?
And hopefully they are being honest with with the transaction of your money or your life. It may be an and.
It also might be your money or your life. That's all you got. That's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of instances since so many convenience stores empty the till every so many hours, so that there's only, like $100 in the register. Someone comes in expecting several $100 in the score and only gets, $100, $80, and becomes enraged at their misfortune and shoots the clerk just to get rid of a witness, just in rage. And yeah, it's
over $80. Yeah.
Just because they say that they're not going to, they're not going to hurt you if you give them up. They've already proven themselves to be dishonest and not trustworthy people.
Right. But I think we should end with the last link that I put in there. Probably the most exciting news shy of the NYSRPA decision.
What, the 10 millimeter that you already talked about?
It's another caliber of 10 millimeter for use in revolvers.
Oh, David.
And yes, fine, semi-autos too.
You need a rimmed cartridge or moon clips. Moon clips are problematic.
I mean, I was already looking at a Chiappa Rhino in 40. If only they'd make a 10 millimeter.
Oh,
all you have to do is Oddball. All you have to do is get a chambering reamer, and it is in 10 millimeter.
This is true.
You might have to seat the bullets a little.
I am going to thank each and every one of our listeners, and they are so much better than these absolute heathens that are putting pistol cartridges in revolvers.
They are all pistols.
I mean, that is true. But thank you all so much for listening to this show. And thank you so much to our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. You can get early releases of the podcast. Plus, we have hilarious blooper reels. We have early release of the podcast. We have the ACP film tracks, and we have the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends both online and off.
I got a blog. It's called WeirDworlds.com, and I'm also on Handgun Radio. It's all right.
I got a bunch of things going on, and you can find me at linktree/Erin Paulette.
David, do you want to plug?
Sure. Well, obviously, I'm here. I'm also a contributor on Blue Collar Prepping, bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. I'm also a published author. You can find my books currently under Brennebach, although that will be changing. They are listed on Amazon in various formats. Please buy them. Please leave honest reviews.
Oddball?
Here, in theory, Guns, Cars, Tech, and of course, on the Facebook ACP page. And if you're listening to this and you have a Facebook account and you're not already a member of the Assorted Calibers Facebook page, what are you doing? Change that.
Dudes, come on. We thought you were cool.
And thank you to Nate Spencer for our music.
It's a round table. I never know what to do with these things. Blah, 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 and so is our podcast. Good night.
Good night.
Our cartridge host preferences are assorted, and so is our podcast.
Sure.
45 goes in semi-autos.
And revolvers. Rimless lives matter.
All right, that's it. We're out.